Do you sound like this when you sleep? Are you a mouth breather? Do you have obstructive sleep apnea? If you've seen people taping their mouth online and you're wondering, can mouth taping be helpful for your breathing problem? For your sleep, can it improve the quality and the quantity of your sleep? This video is for you. Hey, my name's Lucas. I am a yoga teacher and a breathing coach. I originally trained in classic yoga pranayama, but I went on later to study the Buteyko method, and that's where this mouth taping comes from. In this video today, we'll talk about the history of mouth taping and the Buteyko method, how it might be relevant for you. We'll talk about why it's important to breathe through your nose, not your mouth, especially when you're asleep. And lastly, we'll take a look at how to do mouth taping correctly, and maybe even more interesting, some alternatives to mouth taping that I find a lot more practical and a lot easier to comply with long term. Quick disclaimer here, if you have severe asthma, if you have sleep apnea or COPD, any major respiratory challenge, please go see a doctor. This video is for educational purposes only. Okay, so Buteyko method, mouth taping, what is all of this about? Where did this come from? Dr. Konstantin Buteyko was a Ukrainian medical doctor. He passed away in 2003, but way back in the 1950s, he developed a methodology he named after himself, the Buteyko method, that can really be summed up with slow, gentle breathing through your nose, designed to normalize our breathing rate and to increase our CO2. All of that sounds very counterintuitive, but what Dr. Buteyko discovered is that most of us overbreathe. We breathe too much. In the same way, most of us overeat and most of us overstress. By normalizing our breathing rate, which means slow it down, and by prioritizing nose versus mouth breathing, we can optimize our oxygen absorption in our body, and we can also help with a lot of different respiratory challenges, asthma in particular. The Buteyko method continues to be used all the way up until today, specifically with asthmatics. And if you're wondering, why haven't I ever heard of this? It sounds very simple and very practical. Part of the reason is Dr. Buteyko and many of his students made exaggerated health claims. They got really excited about this slow, gentle breathing, about taping your mouth, about increasing CO2 and normalizing breathing rate, that they started to make claims that if you mastered this technique, you'd only need 4 or 5 hours of sleep a night. They made claims that you could reverse diabetes and cure heart disease. When these teachers exaggerate, what it makes it very easy to do is for the mainstream and alternative healthcare practitioners just to ignore all of this together because it sounds like a bunch of crazy talk. However, it's not crazy at all. Buteyko method, mouth taping, slowing, normalizing your breathing can be very, very helpful whether you're asthmatic or not, whether you have chronic sleep apnea or you're just snoring a little bit. It can be really, really helpful. Okay, so why nose breathing versus mouth breathing? Who really cares? It's going in the same pipe anyway. Doesn't really matter, right? Wrong. It makes a big, big difference. Here's what you need to remember. Our nose is for breathing, and our mouth is for eating, exercise, and talking. I'll say that again. Your nose is for breathing, and your mouth is for eating and exercise and talking. The reason being is when we breathe through our nose, a bunch of very interesting physiological responses happen. First thing that your nose does is it acts as a basic filter for particulate matter, but also for bacteria and viruses, the mucus and the hairs in your nose, the paranasal sinuses. All of this is designed as a really simple biological filter for the air that's coming in. It also helps with humidification and temperature control, which are very important. In your paranasal sinuses, when you breathe through your nose only, it also releases something called nitric oxide, NO. Nitric oxide is released in teeny tiny amounts, and its half-life is very short, so we need to continually breathe through our nose. But NO levels are associated with cardiovascular health, vasodilation, circulation, really great for you. Can't get it through your mouth, have to breathe through your nose. One other thing that happens when you breathe through your nose is there are baroreceptors in your sinuses that help to communicate to your brain to control your heart rate, it slows it down, and your blood pressure, it lowers it. Now we go to the flip side. All those things sound great. When we breathe through our mouth, especially when it's not appropriate, like all through the night, here's what happens. Your teeth are really at risk. So cavities and bacteria can grow in your mouth. Post-nasal drip in your throat can be a big problem for people. For young children, chronic mouth breathing at night can even contribute to a deformed palate. You can get increased heart rate, increased blood pressure. Probably of all the things we've talked about, however, just poor quality and poor quantity of sleep can be really, really messed up by mouth breathing. Okay, great. So we slap a piece of tape on our mouth and off we go. Well, it's not really that simple. If you've seen people do this online, you'll see people making jokes with duct tape across their mouth. You'll also see people with custom-made bandages, tape gizmos that tape their mouth closed, and those are all possible solutions. But on a very simple level, this is a safe practice. It's effective for children, for older people, doesn't matter your age, but you don't want to completely cut off your mouth. The way to tape your mouth closed is to take essentially bandage tape. So this is tape you would get from the pharmacy, and you would snip a little clip of it, and you would put it just in the middle of your face. Now, here's the problem. You can probably see it now. I have a beard, right? So if you have facial hair, it just doesn't work very well. But I've used this on my children, and off you go. You can see it falls off with me right away. So this method doesn't work that great for me. Now, to solve this, some manufacturers have custom-made bandages that fit over a fuzzy face like mine and different size shapes. I still find that whether it's my children or me, no matter which taping device I use, I've never made it through an entire night. I rip it off, I tear it off, I find it uncomfortable, just the fact of having the tape. People worry they're going to suffocate. When you put it just on the front of your mouth, or if you're using one of these customized bandages, there's never a risk of suffocation. It's never happened. You can breathe freely. You can even open your mouth. You just don't. So what are some alternatives? Well, one alternative that very few people try, but can be even more effective, is a chin strap. You can order these online. They just cost a few dollars. It does the same thing. You put it around your head, and it holds your chin closed. It's the same thing as taping your mouth, but for a lot of people, this is a lot less weird. They don't freak out their bed partner. A lot simpler, and it also doesn't leave a red mark on your face in the morning. Why is our mouth hanging open anyway? Well, for some of us, we have chronically blocked sinuses. For some of us, we just get in a funny posture. Some of us, we just have bad habits that we need to overcome. We often think of snoring and mouth breathing as something that affects 80-year-old men, and it does disproportionately. But it also affects an 8-month-old baby who gets in a funny position. A young child will wheeze and snore, and while that's not life-threatening, it's not also optimal for blood pressure, for that NO release, for their heart rate, for filtration. So it is something we do want to address. It's not necessary that snoring is something to be scared of, but it is something that you should work to correct. So a chin strap can be a really great, simple option, and you don't have to keep putting tape on your face. Then there's one more option, and as I'll show you this, you've probably seen people wearing these as well. These are something called Breathe Right strips, and you can buy these online or in pharmacies, and I imagine there's a couple other brands. This is the only one that I've ever used. But essentially what these are butterfly strips that go on your nose, and they help to keep your nose open. Why would this be important? Well, I have quite a large nose, and I have these big turbines of sinus openings, but many people just don't. Their nose opening is relatively small, and they're often blocked with mucus. And something like Breathe Right strips, when placed on the bridge of your nose here, can help to open up your sinuses and allow you to breathe more freely. In fact, some people, these are so effective, they don't bother with the chin strap, they don't bother with taping their nose at all. Something like this can have a dramatic effect. Of everything that I've showed you, these strips, these Breathe Right strips, for most people, give them really dramatic difference. In fact, I can feel this right now. My breathing passageways are much more open. I don't need it right now in the middle of the day, but they're much, much more open. Now, before you do any of these things, whether you're taping your mouth, whether you're wearing a chin strap, or whether you're trying some of these strips to expand and open your nose, it's important that you do some basic hygiene for your sinuses. What does that mean? On a fundamental level, if your nose is all blocked up with mucus, you can strap your chin, tape your mouth, you're still going to struggle to breathe. So make sure before you go to bed, you do really thorough sinus cleaning. That might look like after you brush your teeth, cleaning out your nose. That might look like a nasal flush with a neti pot or one of the aerosol sprays. That might also look like deploying one of the other Buteyko techniques, which is holding your breath at the bottom of an exhale. In the Buteyko tradition, this is called a control pause, meaning we pause with our breath, we allow the CO2 to build, we click start on a timer, and what that does is can act as a natural bronchodilator to open up your breathing passageways here, but also your sinuses. I'll show you how to do this because ideally you would not just wear one of these gizmos or tricks, but you'd also do your best to optimize your breathing before you try one of those tricks. Here's how it works, the controlled pause. We inhale gently, and then we exhale. We inhale gently, and then we exhale. Inhale gently, and then exhale. And as you get to the bottom of the breath, hold your nose and hold your breath at the bottom. When you feel the slightest bit of breath hunger, I'd like you to breathe in. And breath hunger is when you feel like, I should breathe. It's not when your diaphragm twitches. It's not when your body convulses. And it's definitely not when you get a headache or feel dizzy. It's just the slightest bit of breath hunger. For most people, when they start off, 10 to 20 seconds will be the maximum they can hold comfortably. No matter what your control pause number is, do not push. Just go to where you're comfortable and then repeat it 4 times. Tape your mouth, put your chin strap on, put your breathe right strap on, and go to bed. It can make a big, big difference. 4 rounds of control pause. You'll find that your control pause naturally goes up very, very quickly over time. But what happens when you hold the breath like that is your blood oxygen, it doesn't change at all. But your CO2 in your lungs, that goes up dramatically. And that CO2, this is what we learned from Dr. Buteyko, it acts like a natural bronchodilator. You can feel your breathing ways open up, and this can set you up for a really great night's sleep. If you'd like to learn more about the Buteyko method, I usually refer people to Patrick McEwen. He's been a guest on the podcast a couple of times. I'll put links down in the show notes here, and he's got a couple of great books as well. If you'd like more science-based yoga videos, please hit subscribe down below. If you have had experience with any of these techniques, whether it's the breathe right straps or chin straps or taping your mouth, I'd love to hear if it's been working for you down below. You can always find my teaching calendar at yogabody.com, and I hope to see you in the next video.